Well, welcome to another edition of the Profitable Christian Business Podcast. I am so pleased to have my guest, Justin Rogers, here today. Justin Rogers and I, he's a new friend. We haven't known each other a long time, but I can just tell if you look at the stuff he posts on social, we are very much aligned in the way that we think and the way that we love the Lord and love people. So I'm so happy to have you here today, Justin. Justin, I'd love for you to give a brief introduction about who you are.
Yeah, what's up, man? I'm thankful to be here today. I always say thankful, blessed, and challenged. It's kind of the three words I've put together. But a little bit about me. I've got an extensive background in project management and business management and real estate development and construction, stuff like that. And then got into real estate sales myself, and then got into business coaching and business consulting, helping other entrepreneurs develop business leadership, sales, and operations skills. Went through a lot of challenges and struggles in my own personal life as a business guy. Arrived at a destination I was not overly excited about and thought, there's got to be something more than just this. And God came knocking on my heart, mind, and soul. I was like, hey, I want you to go do these things. I want you to kind of change your life. I want you to kind of run out of that grave. And I was like, I'd had enough. And I was like, all right, let's go do the thing. So recommitted my life to Christ and started building basically faith-based principles and studying God's word every day and encouraging other men and business owners and husbands and fathers and even women with those faith-based principles that I've learned and implemented in my own life. And that's led to the business growth in a couple of different businesses and partnerships, and just got to be in the room around a lot of great people and mentors and learn a lot of wisdom from people. And I just love sharing that. So here we are.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to dive into, you alluded to some of your story there. So we're going to dive into that a little later, because that's kind of like the heart of the podcast, is kind of sharing your story, because everyone can get encouragement from entrepreneurial life. Is not easy. If anybody gets into it thinking, oh, I'm going to take the easy route. No, you did not take the easy route. You took the hard road.
Right.
Right. So you're going to get, they're going to share know your struggles, kind of get what you come from, and because people can learn from those struggles and
Sure.
and help them avoid them when you share them, and kind of give them a leg up. So I'm glad that we're going to get into that.
Yeah, man. Be good stuff.
What I'd like to do first is kind of just some off off the topic, not really generally business or generally faith-based questions, but just some questions kind of get to know you a little bit better. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the first one of those is, I know you've been involved in some large scale projects. What one project would you say stands out as your favorite, and why?
Favorite project would be being involved in the reserve at Lake Kiwi.
Hmm.
Beautiful project, 4,000 acre development project. And it was kind of really neat to me because when I got out of college, I had a colleague interview me there that was there at the time. And that was in 2000, let's see, I graduated 2008, probably. And then circle back probably 2000, probably almost not hardly 10 years later, but probably 8 or 9 years later, I was involved in leadership and management of that project. And so that was really neat just to kind of see it circle back. But I love those beautiful things. In the people that are involved in communities and projects like that, you get to be around a lot of high-end people, really smart business owners, those people that live there and have second or third homes, and helicopters and airplanes and have built businesses. And just being able to be around people like that and hear the way that they lead their lives and make business decisions, it's very different, kind of a business builder, entrepreneur mindset versus an employee mindset. And so, at that time in my career, I was in the employee mindset, and I was seeing a lot of I was able to be around a lot of really high performing people. And so I kind of got a glimpse of what the other side of the fence looks like.
Yeah.
But it was neat. It was beautiful. The money that they spent building that place, and just the copper and the granite curbing and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Being involved in those kind of luxury large scale projects was neat, because people were spending money back in those days like I don't know that they'll ever spend again, you know?
Yeah. Wow. For the audience sake, Justin and I live not that far from each other. I'm sure we will meet in person probably in the very near future. But Lake Kiwi is one of the nicest lakes in our region. We have a few great lakes, but I think if you ask most of the people in this area, they'll say that Lake Kiwi is their favorite. So, really, really cool.
Yeah, Kiwi's great, Jocasse's great, Hartwell's great. They kind of feed into each other. But Kiwi definitely is a cool spot.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. If you had to pick a motto or a quote that you live by, what would it be, and why does it resonate with you?
That one's easy. Over communicate, under surprise. Um, Frustration fills the gap in communication, whether that's with your
Mm,
spouse, whether that's with a team, staff, leadership, anywhere in the spectrum of life. Frustration fills that gap where communication falls apart. And I have found, we communicate a lot with our ears, not always our mouth. God gave us two ears, one mouth. Sometimes we got to shut that thing and we got to listen to people so that we can really become effective
mm,
communicators. And I think when I was at the reserve is when I developed that motto, because when you're communicating with people that are a high level type clientele, high level user, and they're running businesses and things like that, they're running 100 miles an hour. They expect high level communication. And so I know that people don't like surprises. I don't like surprises. You don't like surprises. And so when you over communicate, you also under surprise. But quite the opposite. When you under communicate, typically you over surprise, and
mm.
nobody likes that. And that can apply to a simple small business, whether it's landscaping clients, painting clients, or a big business where you have shipping and receiving, and even staff. A lot of times, people just need to know information, and so that's a motto that I've implemented in my life, in the real estate side and all the businesses, and even with me and my wife and my kid and all those kind of things is we need to over communicate, right?
Yeah. What kept popping into my mind as you were saying that is the word clarity, right?
Yeah.
Clarity helps with so many things. And when you over communicate, there is a lot more clarity that is delivered, right? When you people lack information, they lack the steps to move forward often, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Clarity is one of the biggest things that I teach to people and entrepreneurs and business guys, is because a lot of people, they don't have clarity.
Yeah.
And I kind of tie that to vision, talking about, like, if you put I use vision as a GPS destination. Most people aren't going anywhere in life because they have no clear vision.
Hmm.
Same thing with our GPS. When you type in a street name and a number, you're putting in a number, a street name, a city, a state, and a zip code. It's very specific and it takes you to a specific spot. But a lot of times in life, we don't have a clear vision of where we want to arrive at. So we kind of arrive at almost anywhere, which turns out to be nowhere we really want to go.
Yeah. One of the things I always like to say as far as entrepreneurship is you got to love the journey too, right? Not
Yeah.
just the destination. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that ties really into it. You can get burnout, and if your vision is not clear enough, you can get really burnout because you're like doing these day-to-day things, and it's it's why, right?
Yeah.
Your why isn't strong enough, isn't clear enough in order to keep you from getting overwhelmed.
Yeah. I think having a clear vision is critical to keep you moving, but you can't, you're 100% right. You can't fall in love with the result. You know, Money is a byproduct. A six pack of abs is a byproduct. Having a healthy marriage is a byproduct. Being a healthy person is a byproduct. Those are results. And a lot of times people get really frustrated in their life because they fall in love with the result, but they don't fall in love with the process. Just like you were saying, they don't fall in love with the journey. You got to fall in love with it. I'm getting up every day. I'm putting my shoes on. I'm putting my hat on. I'm taking the walk. I'm making the calls. I'm making the posts. I'm building the relationships. I'm using my calendar. I'm sending the emails, going to the gym. I'm spending time with my family. Whatever those tasks are, you've got to fall in love with that process, because sometimes the path and the process changes, and the results can come at a very different time. So people tend to
Yeah.
get frustrated because they're not in love with that process. And so when they don't get it in a month or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 20 weeks, they're like, man, I quit.
Yep.
Like, you gotta stay in the game.
Yeah. I'm hoping later I'm going to put it into my head. I want to circle back to this conversation and maybe talk about those tasks a little bit, because sometimes it's those tasks they're doing the wrong tasks to get to where they want to go. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
remind me to circle back to that if I don't.
Got it.
So I know you're a high energy and out of the box thinker. So how do you stay energized and creative when tackling some of those big projects you take on?
So there's a few things I do to keep my head straight. And that's really what I think of it like a river, right? You just got to kind of keep moving. And it's not necessarily about being excited all the time, but when you do have a clear vision, when you're having those days when you're feeling like quitting or throwing it all away or wadding it all up or lighting it on fire, it keeps you moving through the process. And so as long as you keep moving, there's always a tomorrow. And I heard somebody say this one time: we survive 100% of our bad days. We got a 100% track record because we're sitting here having this conversation. And so whatever it is that you're going through, if you go through it, you'll come out on the other side. That's 100% true. And so I stay encouraged and motivated by that simple process. And then also, I know that God made us to do good things. And so I study, I don't just read the Bible, but I study it every morning. Probably like I might miss I might have missed 2 or 3 days in a year
Mm,
because it's like the user manual. And
mm,
so, Myron Golden, he talks about it's a cheat code, right? Go read
mm,
the Bible. It
mhm,
is like a user
mhm,
manual. If you're having problems out of your pickup truck, you're going to go look at the user manual or pull it up on, you're going to Google it, right? So we can Google a lot of things in the Bible. You can actually Google a lot of things in the Bible.
mhm,
And so I have a lot of clarity about who God made me to be and what that looks like. And it just keeps me trucking day to day. Plus, I have a massive faith. Friend of mine and mentor, Ray Higdon, he has a business summit that he puts on called Faith Over Fear.
mhm,
And that concept, right? You can't have both. You either have faith or fear. And one is
mhm.
of God and one is not. And so when we operate with massive faith, I'd rather have massive faith because that gives me a whole lot of hope rather than sitting
Yep.
around, oh, the world is ending. Oh. And so a lot of things that keep me motivated and inspired and encouraged and full of energy are my perspective and my thought process and my words.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that how often you are in the Word,
Mhm.
because we got to fuel our tanks, right?
Sure.
Because there's spiritual warfare out there, and the
Yeah.
devil, like whenever we're trying to do something good for God, the devil is attacking us, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to put on the armor, fuel our tanks, and so that we can keep moving forward. That's really good. I think. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. A lot of times our soul's thirsty and we don't water it.
Yep. Very, very true. Very, very true. I want to thank you for your service too, because I know you are a veteran.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how your time in the military has influenced your approach to leadership and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it was that had absolutely had a lot of impact on that because I made a lot of mistakes, in leadership. So I can tell you a lot of things how that made a specific difference in the way that I've learned to lead and love people versus
Mm,
beat them over the head with things.
mm,
So going in the military, it's very regimented. I enjoy the structure, I enjoy the rhythm, I enjoy the camaraderie that exists inside of that. And I've always wanted to achieve something, whatever that was. I was very driven, even in the military. And so I raised up in rank pretty quickly and became a staff sergeant, and so I was in charge in some capacity. But I remember even in basic training, they're beating you over the head the whole time. Drill instructors, all that kind of stuff. They're beating you over the head the whole time. I was an element leader and I wanted to take on all the troubled people in the flight because I thought I could fix them. That was a
mhm,
mistake. All right.
mm,
That was a mistake. And then I thought I could fix them by forcing them to do things. Right. That
mhm,
doesn't work either. Never worked out real well for that. But I look back and reflect on that. And now I know, there's what we think leadership is, which means telling people what to do. And then there's what actual leadership is, which, biblical faith based leadership is like loving people with grace and clear direction and being able to over communicate what that looks like
mm.
and under surprise them. And then we've got to be the leader of our own lives in order to, expect others to let us lead them. And so being in the military, once I got out of that and you kind of got out of the basic training world and you got into the real world of what that looked like, the leadership, they were never beating us over the head. Basic training was an experiment basically to kind of break us down and put us back together. But outside of that, leadership wants you to do well. Leadership wants you to achieve things. Leadership, we need to communicate a message to achieve a common goal. And that's very complicated. We were jet mechanics, and so we're working on things that are life and death situations. I mean, if
Mm,
you leave a wrench inside a jet engine, that's not going to be a good thing.
right.
And so it was pretty serious and intense, but they didn't have to beat us over the head for that. They really just had to have clear communication skills and clear expectations. And so that's the way that I work with people in coaching and, hiring people, and the way that I lead people, that I do coach and business consulting and that kind of stuff. I love to lead with clarity and grace and love, versus, we're going to turn this into boot camp and beat people over the head.
Yeah, sometimes it's a strange concept, especially for non-believers, that leadership from a Christian perspective is servant leadership, right? It's how
Yeah.
can you serve the other person, not how can you get them to do exactly what you want them to do. How can you serve that person so that they are providing their best to you, right?
Yeah. I read a book one time. I was in a gas station off Highway 11 and 26, actually. Remember it. And there was a book, and it was something about the leadership characteristics of Jesus.
Mhm,
And I was kind of in a leadership position in a job, and I thought, I need to read that because this military type leadership thing with people in the civilian world is not working out
mhm.
real well. And so I read that book, and it was a you're 100% right. There's so much leadership training in the Bible and the way that we should lead and love people, and it really is through service.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. One of the staples of this podcast is our fill in the blank question. So your fill in the blank question is the biggest lesson entrepreneurship has taught me about faith is blank.
The biggest lesson entrepreneurship has taught me about faith is that it's necessary
Mm,
because it's hard. Um, Whenever you're building anything, just like we alluded to in the beginning of the conversation, entrepreneurship is not an easy road to hoe, especially if you're going to get better at it.
mhm,
And there's going to be and markets change and seasons change and people change. There's so much change is inevitable. And so when we have faith, faith allows us to build on a foundation that doesn't waver with the wind because
mhm,
everything else in life is going to change, especially as an entrepreneur. Profit margins change, schedules change, meetings change. And so, faith, I would say, is critical and crucial because it allows us to have hope in something bigger than us. And it
mm,
allows us to have that connection where we can build a foundation based on something more stable than everything else that's always changing. And that's what it's done for me. It has allowed me a lot of times in life, we're like this. We're up, and we're highs and
mhm,
we're lows. We're highs and we're lows. Well, what faith has allowed me to do in my life and my business through all the seasons of change, whether it's personal or business or financial or physical or whatever those things is it's created consistency in my life. It allows me to wake up and say, this is my foundation and it's solid. Everything else can change, but we got this.
yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome, yeah. Now I want to get into your story a little bit. We
Sure.
alluded to it at the beginning of the podcast. I just know what I know from the little bit I've talked to you and what I've seen on social media. I'm hoping we grow our friendship because, like I said, we align so in so many ways. But I want you to share your story. Start with it's free form. Start wherever you want to start from, but kind of take us to where you are now.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see if we can keep this in the kind of the condensed version, because that's years and years.
Yeah.
So, I grew up in a great household, kind of a traditional, Christian Southern Baptist household. We went to church and those kind of things. Mom stayed at home for the most part. Dad was kind of in a mechanical engineering role in a plant, had a good job, and we didn't grow up with a whole lot. I have two brothers, and so we didn't have a lot of extra things like that. Um, I was always, as a kid, I was bullied a lot, and just I was different, meaning like I didn't want to do all the things that mattered to everybody else.
Mm,
So wasn't interested in sports, even through high school and all that kind of stuff. I was in the band. I enjoyed playing the drums. That was fun. I do enjoy music. Um, and so, but I knew I wanted to do something different, meaning like, I saw some other people live a lot different life. And I thought, well, how do you do that? Like, and I thought, okay, I need to go to college. I need to get a good job. I want to provide. I knew that I wanted to be married. We've been married for 16 years this year. So we've been married for a long time.
congrats.
Thanks. And I knew I wanted to have a family and I knew I wanted to be able to do things with that family, whether that was going to Disney World or having a horse or taking a trip or doing whatever. And so I knew there was a money aspect involved in what all that looked like. So it was a main goal to go get a good job. And so I went to college, got a good degree in project management. My mom and dad were real smart. Mom was in accounting, dad
Mm,
was in engineering. And so we were really good at science and math, and we were pretty well articulated from an education standpoint. We did our homework, they checked it, making, A's and B's, anything else was not
mm,
allowed. And brothers were smart as well. And so we all grew up, with that, thankfully. So went to college, enjoyed that, excelled in college, graduated top of the class, one of the only two people out of the class to graduate with a certified project management certification, which is a really complicated thing to obtain. And so I had a lot of job offers. Plus, I had a security clearance from being in the reserves in the Air Force at the time. And so I got offered a job with Hensel Phelps, and they were building buildings with NASA. And
mm,
so that was really cool because not a lot of kids coming out of college got those opportunities. They flew you down there, fed you good, treated you good. I still got my security clearance badge over here on my wall. Actually, it's kind of funny. And then I got another job offer from one of the largest construction companies in the country called Hewitt Southern, and they
mm,
did like $53 billion in 2008. When the rest of the world was crashing.
mhm,
And they own the Peter Kiewit building. Warren Buffett's office is in the Peter Kiewit
mm,
building, and private planes and all kinds of stuff. So great opportunities. And so I thought it was really cool. Got a great job right out of college, loved it. But traveling around in commercial construction, industrial construction, jobs in, you got to move. And so that was a lifestyle we decided we didn't want to do. Came back home, bought a house, started a business doing project management for hire. And that was going well until Uncle Sam called, said, hey, Operation Iraqi Freedom, we need help. Be in
mm.
Charleston Friday at 7. So I was like, all right. I didn't even get to move into the house. My wife had to move into the house because I was gone.
Wow.
And that was a journey. And we moved around a bunch, the next probably 2 or 3 years of our marriage in the beginning. And then I ended up getting into. I was kind of frustrated with some of the things I was doing. I got off active duty, came back. One of the companies I was doing some consulting work for offered me a job doing basically working with luxury resorts and developers, helping them put the projects back together after the recession or
Mm.
after 08, 09 crash. Buyers were coming in from overseas, buying up golf courses and
Mhm.
resort communities, and so I got involved with helping people navigate all that. Probably did about 12 of them. That gave me a whole lot of experience in financial management, business management, tied in real well with the project management stuff, and then some acquisitions things, and just being around people that are spending tens and twenties and thirties and millions of dollars
Mm.
was an interesting environment. then then I thought I wanted to go sell insurance. Wasn't my thing. Um, I just being in an office all day just wasn't my cup of tea. And then I ended up going down to the reserve and working with them in the management team and helping with that project. And then that came to an end. Just it was done. And so I was like, what am I going to go do? And so my wife was a real estate agent. I had a home inspection license just because I enjoy construction. And I was like, man, I could start a home inspection business. Being around all these other high performing
Mm.
business owners, I'm like, I'm gonna start a home inspection company. And like I said, my wife was in real estate. She referred out about 6 deals to South Carolina every year. And I was like, well, I'm gonna get my South Carolina real estate license. About that time, COVID happened.
Mm.
They closed all the real estate offices. So it was hard to build relationships because I'm a door knocker. I'm a phone caller, door
Mhm.
knocker. So I'll go out and I'll come to real estate offices. And that was my marketing plan, excuse me, for my home inspection business. But when they closed everything, it was hard to build relationships. So then when I got my real estate license, the company that I ended up starting with wanted me to coach real estate agents just because of some of my business management, project management background, having a good attitude and posting content on social media. And so I started coaching real estate agents actually before I started helping people buy and sell houses, which is kind of funny um, because a lot of people may not listen to somebody that has a lot of business management or project management experience, being that they've never bought or sold a house. And so got into that. And then part of that was I had a coach. So I had a real estate coach and we did the math. I think I've got the book over here in my drawer still about how much money I wanted to make. And I was kind of mad. I had a little chip on my shoulder because I kind of got kicked off the team from my dream corporate job, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
In the development world. And so I was like, I'm gonna beat them, meaning like I'm gonna make more money than I was making. And so we did the math on that. And I got into making phone calls and building relationships and did all the little things that it takes. The real estate market was hot and we just went to work. And me and my wife looked at each other and we're like, we're going to go into a season of where we're just going to work as much as we can and do as much as we can and then see what happens on the back end. um, Worked on halfway becoming an alcoholic through that whole process just because I was busy and distracted and running and had a lot of pain in my life that I hadn't dealt with. Did really well in real estate sales and rose to kind of the top of the office real quick and just kept running and running. And then finally, I had a moment in my life, kind of like all the if you're in a plane, they have warning alarms. Hey, this is wrong. Hey, this is wrong. Things are beeping at you. Well, there were a lot of things. There were a lot of alarms going off in my life, and I was ignoring them. Right, planes crashing, and I'm just like
Mhm.
flying like this. Like, hey, maybe it'll work out. Being around being around wrong people, wrong ideas, wrong mindset, just in a lot of personal ways, and I decided to get off that plane. I was like, I don't like where this thing's headed. I kind of woke up and thought, this is all a big problem. This is not really where I want to land as a father in my marriage,
Mhm.
physically. I've had enough. I was like, I either got to put the brakes on this thing or it's going to crash. And so I had to come to Jesus meeting. I did. I had a real come to Jesus meeting, and he's like, I want you to run away from all these things, like run out of the
Mhm.
grave. And I was like, all right, okay. And so there was that was probably almost 2 years ago. um, I had to go through a lot of things, and it was a very painful process, emotionally and mentally, spiritually, digging through all those things of the past and just the issues and the things that I was trying to cover up. It was like trying to put a
Mhm.
lid on a steaming pot. It was just going to blow off at some
Mhm.
point. And so it was a painful, painful process, but I learned a lot in it. Did a lot of praying, a lot of soul searching. Had to build a foundation on something that wasn't blowing in the wind, and so I kind of had to unpack everything and almost start over personally. And thankfully, my wife was, she's hanging in there with me the whole way. Love that woman. Like she's like my treasure, you know, because she's been through
Hmm.
all these things with me, and still lets me on the boat with her, you know. And so through that, I started coaching other business owners and entrepreneurs and had a few people reach out about it. And I create a lot of content on the internet. And so some guys wanted some mentoring and coaching. And so I started doing that and realized that a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs have a skill set, or a potential business, but they don't have any business management or operation skills, or really any sales skills or simple systems to implement to help make their day or their business life more effective. And so what happens is they end up like I was. They end up at a destination that they don't like because they're trying to fill their life with distractions because things just aren't going like they thought. Their marriage starts hurting. You know, their kids, they're not present with their kids. Yeah, they're out of shape. And so they end up kind of arriving at a destination where they're fat, broken, miserable.
Mm.
And that's terribly painful, you know, to spend a lot of your life and you look back and you're like, I don't like any of it. You know, we're going to live one time. We're going to die on the other side. I tell
That's
people
right.
all the time, we might as well live a life of intention, right? Which is
Yeah.
what God made us to do. And so that's kind of where I've arrived at from there to here. And through that coaching process, I've been able to build basically a repeatable system where, regardless of whatever business you have, you know, if you come into my wheelhouse, we get you a lot of clarity and vision. There's a personal process that we go through because a lot of business problems are a result of people's personal problems.
Mm.
And so we unpack all that, and then we start to implement simple systems and some rhythm in your life to where, you know, I have four favorite words: clear, simple, effective, and efficient.
Mm.
And we implement those strategies and people's businesses start to grow. And then we implement sales strategies and marketing and emails and CRM and, you know, building a database and what all that looks like. And then things start to really change. And now them personally, they're capable of handling it from an effective standpoint and a mental perspective standpoint of, you know what, I can do this. And we've actually created 3 additional businesses out of, you know, the coaching program where these businesses didn't even exist, you know, 6 months ago. So that's super exciting. So I love that.
Wow. Well, I have some follow-up questions. I was taking some notes while you were
Okay.
talking. One of the things that I really, the last piece there, foundation, right? So many people build businesses without a proper foundation, and you're attacking it right from the foundation, making sure that you help them build that foundation if they don't already have it, or repair the foundation that is there. So, just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of times, and it's probably almost 99% of the time where people kind of accidentally start a business, right? They have a side hustle. They're like, hey, I'm gonna paint houses on the weekends. I'm gonna be a part-time real estate agent. I'm gonna cut grass. It's spring. I want to buy a boat, so I'm gonna make me a couple $1,000 so I can go buy a boat. Well, then what happens is they realize that they may be pretty good at it, or they're good at some part of it, or there's a need in the market, and so they end up going, hey, I can make money doing this. But what happens is they themselves aren't ready for that business growth because they have never really worked on any type of personal development. And so then they're like, I'm going to build this thing for me and for us and for the kids and whatever that looks like. And so they're becoming consumed by this new thing that they also don't have any business management experience in, right? So they're being consumed by all the tasks, the phone calls, the emails, the Facebook messages. And then what happens is they end up creating their own chaos and anxiety because they have 300,000 emails and they got 300 text messages and 40 missed calls. And then they're hiring somebody and then there's no profit margins. And then they're missing out on sales opportunities because they have no business management opportunities or operations management kind of systems in place. And then their perspective starts to change and they want to throw it all away and burn it to the ground and quit and go home and get a job. And so most of these things, they last less than 2 years. I think that I don't know what the metric is on that anymore, but most businesses don't make it past 2 years. And it's because a lot of those things, but if they really look back at the core of what it was, they're not able to endure it all, you know? And so that's one of the things that we work on are kind of the foundations: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, because I want people to have great marriages. I want people to
Mhm.
be great moms and great fathers. Like, again, we're going to do this thing one time. When we get to the end, all those emails and all that operational stuff I just mentioned, ain't nobody gonna care. Most people won't care. But who will care will be your wife or your kids or your grandkids or the people that you got to make a difference in their lives. That impact, that'll make a difference. And so you've got to have foundational things in place to make sure that you're paying attention to the impact and who the impact is on and what the impact looks like, instead of just building a chaotic business system.
Awesome. Awesome. The next question is, you have a background from the military and a lot of other things that would instill discipline into you, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, just a lot of them come from a corporate job where it's kind of imposed discipline, right? Their bosses are imposing the discipline on them where it's not self-discipline. So can you kind of talk about the importance of discipline, and maybe you also help entrepreneurs with that piece, right? That they're not as disciplined as they need to be. So if you could speak on that.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Discipline is a very impactful part of life in general. When you have that vision, when you have clarity around your vision and you have certainty around that, and you're certain in who God made you to be and what God made us to do, which isn't a complicated thing. When we have that, discipline is necessary to get there. And in fact, it's a biblical principle as well. There's a saying that discipline equals freedom, and it's true. It ties back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, where we have got to be disciplined in the process to get the result. We got to be disciplined to get the revenue. We got to be disciplined to get the six pack. We got to be disciplined to get the good marriage. We got to be disciplined to become the person capable of building a business. All that requires discipline. And so even in the Bible, it talks a lot of times, there's sacrifice in the Bible, and it talks about suffering, right? For who God made us to be and the things that God made us to do. And a lot of times growing up, I used to think that suffering or that sacrifice meant I had to give everything up. But that's actually not what it means. It means that we need to sacrifice the craziness and chaos that Satan wants us to engage in, and engage in the good things and the good principles and the good habits and the good perspectives and the good things that God made us to engage in, so that we can run that race. So we have to sit down and we have to sacrifice those things. And that requires discipline, because we're so sold on distractions. I always say Satan's a great sales guy, right? Netflix and chill. Go eat the donuts. Go have the 2-hour lunch meeting. Go do these distractive and almost destructive things. We're sold entertainment from, whether that's, I know people that are so consumed by football, they don't know, what their kid's birthday is. And so we're sold so many of these things that it takes away from our ability to be disciplined. And so that is a big thing that I talk about with people too, is you've got to be disciplined. You've got to set, life and business is a math problem. So you set these specific metrics, you back into the numbers, and you've got to be disciplined in order to get to the destination you want to arrive at. Otherwise, you ain't going to get there. If you want to generate a certain amount of revenue, you have a close ratio and you have leads. How many leads do you need? How many calls, how many touches do you need? What's all that look like? It's just a math problem, but you got to be disciplined in your daily habits in order to get the result. And so I think about it in my own personal life. Sitting around drinking a case of beer is not a very good thing. It's not something that God wants me to participate in. It's not good. It's a distraction that Satan wants to sell me. But in order for me to get to live the life and tend to the garden and get the fruit God has for me, I've got to be disciplined in the process and not be distracted by those things. And that's a sacrifice. So again, it's just a biblical principle of growing into, who God made us to be. It requires sacrifice. It requires some suffering. It requires some discipline. But I think I use the physical reference a lot, because a lot of people, there's the pain of not doing it, and then there's the pain of doing it.
Yeah. Pruning the vine, right?
Yeah.
You gotta prune the vine.
You got to tend to the garden. You
That's
got to
right.
prep the soil, plant the seed, water the garden, pick the weeds, build the fence. People want fruit. They don't want a garden.
Yep. Very, very true. That's a very good segue to the secret question. I ask a secret question of every entrepreneur that comes on here. So what is the secret to getting tactical, implementing simple systems, and avoiding planning paralysis?
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I'm a huge fan of what I call tactical problem solving. And that really has nothing to do with the military. Some people think it's like a military term. It's not. It's really just a simple way of, hey, let's do what works and avoid what doesn't. And it's not real complicated. Let's implement the concept. Let's implement the standards of simple, clear, effective, and efficient, right? That's a tactical approach. It's not complicated or anything like that. And I also use the word tactical because it really ties into the word functional. A lot of people, they want to create, a 400-page SOP manual that nobody's ever going to read. What you need is, 20 bullet points of something that's simple, clear, and effective. And that allows you to function efficiently. So being tactical means that you have an objective path towards what you want to arrive at. You have a real clear vision of what you want to arrive at. It's very simple. It's not complicated. And you have a very objective mathematical problem or a solution in order to get there. I always paint the picture like this. People are here, and once you get clarity about that, you got to get the truth about where you are, and then you got to build the bridge between the two. And that bridge can simply be a tactical solution. And it doesn't have to be complicated. A lot of times we spend so much time, we got to create a new system. I need to build this. I need to build that. I need to build this software. I got to find that. There's something on the shelf somewhere you can buy for $50 a month or $200 a month or whatever it is. Go buy it, implement it. It ain't perfect, but they spent, $10 million building it. You ain't got $10 million. And so people are just distracted. So being tactical and solving your problems means just being honest,
Mm.
So that's why I use that word. What were the other parts of that question there?
Implementing simple systems and
Okay.
avoiding planning paralysis.
Okay. So implementing simple systems. Here's what we've all heard this word, system scale businesses, right? People say
Mhm.
that and they think that it means that I've got to go build some complicated system in order to scale my business because I want to scale my business. Everybody says that too. I bought a course on how to scale my business. Great. But here's what I mean when I say that. Simple systems mean living life by your calendar. A lot of people have no clue what their week looks like when Sunday rolls around because they don't use a simple system called a calendar, right? It happens all the time. I talk to entrepreneurs. Hey, what's your calendar look like? What do you mean? I'm like, you don't use your calendar? They're like, oh, well, I write it down on a notepad. Where's that notepad?
Mhm.
That's a good question too. So simple systems. Another really phenomenal simple system is like a Google Drive and Google Sheets. For every business that I have or every person that I coach, I have an individual Google Drive, and that's where everything lives. We put our content in there, we put our action items in there, we put, meeting agendas in there, we put marketing content in there, all that kind of stuff. Again, a simple system where you're going to have everything housed in one spot. And then the action items. Most business owners don't have an action items list. They don't have dates when the action item came up. They don't have it assigned to anyone. They don't have a target date. They don't have a completion date. And so it can be everything from call 811 before you dig on this job. It could be order materials for this job. It could be assign this to Susie. It could be call this person back. It could, whatever those action items are, set up my Google Calendar, right? Find a CRM that works for me. But people lose track of all those things and they never end up happening because they don't have something simple in place that's functional that they can use in a tactical way. And
Yeah.
so Google spreadsheets, something like that. Again, CRM, simple system. You don't have to have, Elon Musk's CRM to run your business. There's one out there called LineDesk. LineDesk, I think, is $50 a month. It's a great CRM. You can load all the things in a CSV format. It's extremely editable. You can modify it really easy, whatever that right word is there. And you can literally communicate with as many thousands of people as you have in your database at a few clicks of a button. And then it also, when you have a simple system, and then we'll use a CRM as an example, most people don't know who they're calling, when they're calling, what the relationship is, what the status of the relationship is, when they left a voicemail, when they sent an email, what the dog's name is, when the person's birthday is. And so they just don't have good database. And so having simple systems like that in place are great ways, to make your business effective, clear, simple, and efficient, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
time that planning paralysis, a lot of people, they want to spend their whole life planning those things. They want to spend their whole life planning systems. They want to spend their whole life planning tactics. They want to spend their whole life planning everything. And I know this from mentors I've had in just my own personal life. Planning has its place. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. But you got to get out there and you got to get to work and you got to put the boots on the ground. You got to take action. You got to fail some. You got to learn some. You got to fail some more. You got to learn some more. And all of that is found out and figured out through the process of getting out there and doing it. You're not going to get better at knocking doors or making cold calls or creating Facebook Reels or Facebook Lives or whatever it may be, even meeting people and shaking hands if you don't get out there and go meet people and shake hands.
Yeah. Very, very true. One of the things that kind of alludes to one of the things that we do. We have a goal getting call every Monday for our clients, and it's through our Profitable Christian Business Planner. And basically, we have them reverse engineer their goals and then put action steps to them, right?
Yeah.
And so, what I kind of want to dive into with you is I'm bringing that conversation back around to the tasks that we're actually going to move the needle, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people put a to-do list, but they do the wrong things,
Yeah.
right? They don't prioritize those. So if
Sure.
you could kind of talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I highly recommend that you use a Google Sheet and a Google Drive to make that action items list and you establish responsibility, you establish a setup date, and then you establish a deadline date because metrics matter, right? We get what we measure. And so a lot of people
Mhm.
miss that step. So that's simple and clear. But then which ones do we do? Because you probably have 100 on the list. And so there's a couple different ways that I categorize them. You can categorize them a one, two, three, or an ABC. And so, an A category item would be like, this is going to impact my revenue, or the revenue of jobs that are on the books. So if I don't call 811 and I can't dig this, then that puts this machine behind, and then prepping for this site pad and putting in these bushes or whatever. It creates a multiplier of delays. So that would be an A action item. A C action item would probably be, a C action item would probably be order more road cones. Like it's not critical. It's important, but it's not super important. And there's a quadrant, matrix quadrant for these kind of things, in the way that you can categorize, urgent and important, urgent, not important, not urgent, not important, and what those look like. So there's a strategic way, and some YouTube videos if anybody wants to watch those. But then a B action item is going to be somewhere in the middle, meaning it's coming up, right? So I don't need 811 tomorrow or in the next 3 or 4 days, but I need an 811 call, which for those of you who don't know what an 811 is, it's a utility locate for, contractors and people that do digging. But it can hold you up in a job and or expose you to a lot of risk. If you tear up a line and you haven't called 811 and you don't have the ticket number and all that kind of stuff, it could be a huge fine to you, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So not doing those things can be critical. So that's why I use that as an example. But a B item task would be like looking at your calendar, right? Oh, okay, in 4 weeks, we've got Susie's job coming up. We need to make sure that we've got these things in place. Those are B action items. They're, more than 2 weeks out, but they are going to be critical at some point. And so they need to be paid attention to. That's the way that we typically categorize those kind of things. And then, talking about, what was the other part of that question? I forgot in that process.
Let me rewind. I was so busy listening to all the great things that you were saying. I forgot
rattle.
my question.
Was it talking about what are the other tasks?
The task and
Here are
how
the
you
tasks.
prioritize them. I think you explained it pretty clearly.
Yes, so those are a lot of the like business operations tasks, but let's talk about sales tasks, because there's another set of tasks that entrepreneurs need to do, and I call them revenue generating tasks. I have found almost 100% of the time, most people, A, they don't use their calendar like we explained, but B, they don't schedule any office hours to do revenue generating tasks. Like zero. And then the other part of that equation is they don't even know what the revenue generating tasks are. Like you ask somebody, hey, what are your revenue generating tasks? They're like, doing the work. I'm like, no, you already sold that job. Right. So what got you there? And they're like, oh yeah, what got me to the lady's front door to quote the job. Right. And so revenue generating tasks, I would encourage everybody, and I have them on my calendar. I could tell you what they look like. I live by my calendar. That is one of my standards. I have revenue generating tasks on my office calendar, or on my calendar for office, blocked off every week, twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 to 5. So what that means, what are revenue generating tasks? Well, that's when you got to sit down and put your butt in the seat and follow up with Facebook leads. That's when you got to make some phone calls. It could be door knocking. It could be following up with past clients. It could be following up with anybody that's in your database or your CRM. And so there are some things that we know that generate revenue usually in every business. And it really boils down to one thing. The one thing that generates revenue for any business is relationships. It's not rocket science. Now, there's a few ways to build those relationships, but at the end of the day, it's building relationships. So if you don't like cold calling, you don't like door knocking, take your dog to the park and make some new friends. Go to the gym, make some new friends. My redneck analogy is you can't catch fish if you ain't fishing.
That's right.
A lot of business owners complain about their revenue opportunities, but they're not doing any tasks to lead that or to lead up to that. They're not telling people what they do. Social media and content is a great way to do that as well. And so there's a few things that always work, and then really they're just involved, and they all involve building a relationship with other people to tell them what you do.
Yeah. So often you can look at the problems in a business and say, you know what would solve that? Some more sales.
Sure. Yeah. Somebody a few years ago, they asked me, they said, what about when real estate? They're like, are you worried about the interest rates? I was like, no, I'll just make more phone calls. Like, no, I'm not worried. I can worry about it, or I can get to work. I tell people that all the time. I get them on a call or whatever, and they're all worried. I'm like, listen, you can worry or you can go to work. One's going to solve a problem. The other's not.
Yeah. And you have to be willing, if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
You do. It absolutely is at first. And I teach a lot of people on how to have conversations about what they do. Some people call it an elevator pitch, but in the South, I call it a gas station pitch because we ain't got elevators. And a lot of times, so you ask people, what are your revenue generating tasks? And then I ask people, what do you do? What do you tell people when somebody in a pickup truck at the gas station says, hey man, what do you do? What do you tell them? I cut grass. Okay, well maybe, but how can we make that more impactful of
Mhm.
a statement to where we can build a relationship or at least communicate a message? Um, and so you're 100% right. Like more sales always helps any business. And one of the things I learned, and I forget who I heard it from, there's somebody else, but the number one task of an entrepreneur is to generate revenue.
Mhm.
Now, if you're running a nonprofit, maybe that's a little different, but or volunteer something. But a lot of people forget that. Your number one job is not to do the work. Your number one job is to generate revenue, and then you got to go execute the work. And I would say probably 99% of, or almost 100% of small business owners, they've never heard that.
Yeah. I would say also even for nonprofits, money makes the mission possible, right?
Sure,
So,
but
if you want to grow your nonprofit, whether it's fundraising or whatever it is,
you
that
still
should
got to
probably
get
be
out there.
you still got to get
Yeah,
out there. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
No, that's a great point. I think there's
um,
a book called "There's No Profit Like Nonprofit."
and a term I often use is compounding tasks. Like there are
Yeah,
certain things that you do that will grow your revenue the more you do them, right?
yeah,
Say, sales calls, you'll get better at sales calls the more you do it, right?
100%.
So,
It's always funny when I teach people cold calling because I'll get them here in the office and I'll cold call for them, even though it's not a business I'm in,
mhm,
because the end goal is the same, and I've got a simple 4-step process for that. But it's funny because when you hear them on the phone the first time, they're super salesy, and it's all about them. They're telling,
mhm,
oh, I got this business, I got this equipment, I'm this guy, I've been in business this long, and I got to teach them how to slow down and use their ears, ask questions, and make a friend. You know.
mhm. Yeah,
So it's always
yeah.
funny.
Building relationships. Like
That's it.
be more interested than interesting, right?
Oh man, that's so good. That's so true. I love that. That's a Facebook quote right there.
Yeah,
But it's
there
so
you
true. And I've got a friend of mine, somebody that I got some mentoring from who's a billionaire, and he built a very successful business. And those are things he teaches. He teaches,
Mhm,
he says that if you build relationships, it'll build a recession resistant business. You've got to nurture them and all that kind of stuff. But when I tell people to do cold calling, here's what I tell them. Just call them up and tell them you're trying to build a friend in the business. If you're a subcontractor calling a contractor, and then you can always say this: it's always good to have friends in the business, isn't it? And they're going to go, yeah, it is. When I need a 911 grading guy, it's good to have your phone number. Great, I'd love to come by, meet you, get to know you, build a relationship. Maybe at some point we could do some business together.
yeah,
And but if you call them up, here's what happens: the people on the other end, people are always calling. Can I get some of your time and money? Can I get some of your time and money? And they're like, no. But when you call them up and you don't say any of that, they're like, oh, yeah, man, let's grab coffee. I'd love to chat with you.
yeah. It sometimes gets a negative conjecture, what's called like the good old boys network, right?
Yeah.
But give me a good old boys network because that means I've established those relationships and we
Yes,
can all
sir.
rely on one another.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's great. It's true.
yeah.
A lot of growth happens there.
So, how do you help keep some of these entrepreneurs focused when you're trying to implement some of these systems and things like that?
So we create rhythm, right? I think rhythm
Mm,
is important. I don't really like the word routine because things are kind of always changing,
mhm,
but we should implement some sort of rhythm to our lives when we have a standard that we live life by our calendar and we time block. We break down basically what are those tasks that I need to be doing during my office hours, and we time block out to protect these things. What I do is I set up a rhythm with them. So every
mhm,
week we have a same call, same time every week. Period. We have a Google Drive. They know to go in the train them up, go in the Google Drive, update your action items before our phone call or in-person meeting, or send me an email with subjects you want to discuss. Don't come up in here being like, I want to talk about my dog and the flowers. Like, I mean, if you need to, that's fine, but we're here for a purpose. And so we want to accomplish something in our time together. And so once they understand that and we put that process into place, we look at the action items, we pull them up. I can access a lot of them CRM on my computer, so I can look at it on my screen, look at it on their screen. And so I communicate the expectation, and ask them to get in alignment with it, ask them to trust me in the process, and it'll lead to good things for them. And almost always does if they implement or show up and listen.
nice. I want to transition just a little bit to more about your faith.
Sure.
You talked about being raised Southern Baptist, right?
Yeah.
Did you get saved at a young age, or was it later on in life?
I did get saved at a young age.
Okay, nice,
So
nice.
I got saved at a young age. You know what that was. I may not really be 100% sure, but there was obviously something there too. That I mean, I was like 5,
Mm,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So, but for me, I also got saved at a young age, but I found like I was a very immature Christian, right? And
Sure.
my family was one of the, like, unlike probably your family, I went to church. I was lucky enough to go to church in a time that I could get saved because they were in and out of church all the time, right? And I went astray. I was the sheep when I was younger. I was the sheep that went astray, and God had to pull me. God, yeah, I could go back and look at all the times in my life that God put somebody there that was pulling me back in, and it's just so glorious
Amen.
that he went and found me. So
Yeah.
I'm nowhere where I need to be with my walk with the Lord, but I am so much stronger now. And I'm going through a season now that just my communication with the Holy Spirit is better than it ever has been. So,
That's good.
um, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of went down the same road where I was saved at a young age and stayed fairly well in harmony with, God and the creator, I guess, for a long time. But then I just got lost,
Mm,
lost in business and lost in chasing the wrong things. And I was seeking external
mm,
validation,
mm.
through stuff or jobs or money or bodybuilding, whatever it may have been. And I was just distracted by a lot of things. And same thing, man, God came knocking and pulled me out of that grave.
Yeah.
And I'm so full of gratitude for it because like my daughter calls me dad number two,
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah. She knows who her heavenly father is.
well, no, no, the first version of me, the
Oh,
first part of her
oh,
life was not at all the version of this Justin
oh,
Rogers. I'm so different, that she has noticed.
wow. That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
One of the best compliments our daughter ever gave us. I want to say she was like 10 years old, and she asked. We asked her, if you had to tell somebody else about us, what would you say?
Oh man, that's good.
She said, "How much you love the Lord." I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we're doing something right."
Yeah, no, that's so true and so impactful. And a lot of people think that they may say that that's cringy, Christian
Yeah,
cringy or whatever. But
yeah.
here's the thing: I know for a fact that I was running down a path of chaos and self destruction, all the way to the tune of like suicide and all kinds of stuff. And God has to be real because not only did He come knocking and pulling me out of all that chaos and darkness, but I am free from it.
Mm,
And so, we have a soul, and that soul, like I said, desires to be watered or tended to in some capacity. And a lot of people in life, they tend to their money. They may tend to themselves
mm,
physically. They may tend to their truck or whatever. But most people, unfortunately, and I'm really guilty of this myself, most of my previous life, I never watered the garden. I never tended
mhm.
to my soul. And so, no wonder inside of myself, I was so conflicted and so full of anxiety and chaos and self destruction.
Wow. So let's talk about God in your business journey a little bit. How have
Yeah,
you seen God work through your leadership and servant approach to entrepreneurship?
that's a great question. One of the things that I pray is for God to send the people, meaning
Mm,
not necessarily just the clients, but also people to lead me, right? When I am seeking something, that God would send somebody to speak to me,
mm,
right? A lot of times we pray for a lot of lottery ticket to solve our problems. I like to pray for God to send somebody, and God has.
mhm,
There's been times in my life where, specifically, and I can tell you the date. It was February 26th, I think, probably 2 years ago. A lady after church turned around and wanted to pray for me and lay her hands on me and lay her hands on my heart. And I was struggling with some things. And, that was kind of about the time I was having a come to Jesus meeting.
mm,
And so there was that moment. And then I was like, I was coming out of the cave. I was coming out of the grave, and literally I've never seen this lady in my life. We had barely even gone to that church, and she turned around and said some things and prayed for me. And like I said, it was just a crazy,
wow.
wild experience. And then I went home. I was like, all right, well, God's obviously up to something in my life. I'm going to read the Bible. So I crack open a Bible study that I haven't read in who knows how many years, right? And so that story, and I've got it screenshotted in my Google Drive, talks about when an elder in the church lays their hands on you, go do the things that God called you to do. And I'm like, listen, this lady yesterday, this older lady in the church lays her hands on me and prays for me, and here I am reading this. I went downstairs and asked my wife. I was like, I was going through sobriety at that point. And I was like, am I losing? Am I losing it? Like, am my screws coming loose? And so that was just a glimpse where God showed up. And then God has continued to send people and send business and send opportunities. I've got to get out there. I got to put the truck in drive and I got to go take the walk.
Mhm,
But just the things that God has aligned in my life, and the people, it's all about the people, right? We talk about impact and
mhm.
relationships and those kind of things. the way that he's changed my heart from it's about me to where it's about other people.
Mm.
And my main goal, and one of the reasons I love coaching and consulting, is because we get to help somebody else really make a difference in their life. And so when we get to take our brokenness and our stories and all the failures and then overcoming those things and help teach that to somebody else and help them avoid the shipwreck or the
Mm.
plane crash, then that's a phenomenal impact. And then that their kids get to see it. Like a lot of the guys that I coach, their relationship with their kids is different. The relationship with their wives is different. And then God does continue to send the people. We've invented a few products at this point in business, and we're working on patents and trademarks and all that kind of stuff. And God, I'm telling you, just shows up. I'll tell you a cool story. A guy came to me and wanted me to help him create a product, which is a little bit different because manufacturing and shipping and all that stuff. And so, good friend of mine connected me with a business attorney, Doug, who now we use for everything. And we needed a manufacturer for this product, right? We're like, we don't know how to find this. Well, this is just wild. This is a God thing because
Mhm.
God sends, I think, this card right here.
Mm.
Okay. Came to me in the mail randomly, and I keep this on my desk because it's a wild story. It says, Justin, keep building your lifestyle. Have a great day. Klaus. I had no clue who Klaus was, but turns out Klaus owns a company that manufactures belts and manufactures a variety of goods, and always has, and has been in that business for about 40 years. And he's been able to bring some serious relationships to our hat tags business and then some other business opportunities. But I was friends with him on Facebook, and he sent me a card out of the blue just because he likes
Wow.
I was sharing my story, and he's like, man, I want to encourage this guy. And so I hit him up. I was like, hey, can you help us out? And he helps us out. He put us in touch with the manufacturer. The manufacturer ordered machinery from Germany. That's been shipped in. It's being set up this month. And he's helped us generate potential, seven figures in sales, almost right out of the gate. And so that's a God thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little tip about content in there too, because you've been sharing content, right? And he
Yeah.
happened to see your content. Like you never know, like when you do your story, you see who views your story and stuff like that, but you never know who's really following you until they reach out and say, "I've been following you for years, and I think you can help me."
Yeah, it's really interesting. They may never like a post. They may
Hmm.
never share a post. You'd be like, man, I don't even know that person.
Hmm.
But they do, and they watch. And that's another thing I love just about the way that God has changed my heart and my mind and my soul, and just being able to share and encourage others and post a lot. I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy that posts too much on Facebook. So, but it's an audience. One of the things that I teach people is everybody wants to sell something. Nobody wants to build a stage.
Hmm.
And when you create content, you have an opportunity to implement multiplication because you can reach hundreds of thousands of people with content instead of having to make 10 billion, phone calls or door knock. And when you combine the two, and you share your heart and you share your why. I made a post a while back, people, and this is, I think, a Simon Sinek quote, but he said something like, people don't care what you do, they care why you do it.
Hmm.
So when you're creating content or you're sharing, make sure you're sharing why you do these things, not necessarily, hey, I'm a landscaper, hire me. Hey, I'm a landscaper, hire me. Like, you got to build that relationship with people and an ability to connect. But yeah, content's a huge piece of, but content, I mean, the internet has put hundreds of thousands of dollars in my pocket.
Yeah. Um, I love what you said about building a relationship. I think a lot of people have the wrong mentality when it goes to posting content. They're not using that as the forefront thought. Like your forefront thought should be, I'm posting this content to build a relationship with whoever's going to see it. That's why
Yeah.
I'm putting this content out there.
Yeah, a lot of people and that's really why we talk about the foundation first. We got to get this thing together because a lot of people are afraid to post their heart on
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook or the truth. Like I talk about good days, I talk about bad days. I post inspirational stuff that God lays on my heart and mind or things that I hear. But I have bad days too. We go through seasons, kind of like what you're just talking about, and when we connect with people through our brokenness, actually more than when we pretend to be perfect. And so I talk a lot about sobriety and my journey and my struggles and those kind of things because I want people to know that we all go through them, and you can go through them too.
Yeah. One of the things I want to make a comment, something I saw, that I don't know if you know, if I saw you, I think you're putting together are you putting together a local event?
I am. So we do events. I have a project called the Power Panel Project where we put on free events for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. the purpose of, and so we have a few different things coming up. The purpose of the power panel is to get people in the room with existing business builders and entrepreneurs instead of having to go to TikTok, Instagram, and
Mm.
YouTube for some BS course that you're going to pay $10,000 for, and it's just another course. And courses are great. Information knowledge is great, but implementation is key.
Mm.
But also getting information from sources that have done things.
Mhm.
I can go copy and paste a course, out of Go High Level or from somebody else, and then put it back out there for sale for, $10 or $1,000 and have never done a thing.
Mhm.
And so I created the event to get people in the room and to ask open questions. And we've had questions about relationships. We've had questions about how do you manage 20 businesses. We've had questions about how do you, stay married to make time for your kids, go to the ball game, create the content, all those things. And so it's just an open panel Q&A forum, just to get in the room with some really good people. And the last one we had, a good friend of mine came. He charges, when he hosts events, he has events in a couple different places around the country. It's 10 grand,
Mm.
and he flew in for free.
Mm.
And so I've got some other really good high level relationships where I want to bring some of these other CEOs and multi business owners and very wealthy people and very smart people to the panel to say, hey, this guy, listen, and that guy charges 100 grand to be in the room with him for a year. So if you
Wow.
want to get coached by him, it's $100,000. And so come get in the room because
Mhm.
you have an opportunity, instead of spending $10,000 for a weekend or whatever it may be, to get in the room with this guy, shake his hand, get him to autograph your book, and ask him a question. Ask him to buy you or buy him a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
Because again, we become who we surround ourselves with, and so I think that's important. So I wanted to do that, and then I've been working on something for a little while. We have a house at the Outer Banks, and I put some men's retreats on out there, and I wanted to do something closer here to Greenville. And so I've started this family summit, right? It's an entrepreneurial family summit, and it's for everybody. You can bring you and your nephew, you could bring you and your brother, you could bring your kids, you could bring your wife and your kid, some combination thereof. And I want to get, again, people in the room and really talk about problems. This isn't a
Mm.
vacation. There is going to be some fun stuff, and there's going to be some good food, and it'll be healthy food. It's going to be at the Sawmill down in Lawrence, which isn't that
Mm.
far away. It's probably 45 minutes from Greenville, an hour from Travelers Rest. So good location. Lodging's on site, food's on site, all the events are on site. We're going to do quiet time. We're going to do Bible study, not just, quiet time, but we're going to do a Bible study together, talking about how do we actually study the Bible? How do we take some
Mm.
notes about that, not just reading it, because there's a difference, and one is impactful and one is a great place to start. We're going to talk about meditation and prayer and that kind of stuff, and the consumption of the things that we bring into our eyes and ears and, our mind. We're going to talk about physical activity. We're going to do some workouts, some obstacle courses, some training. We're going to do some kids training. I've got different coaches and speakers coming in for different groups of people. So the event space, we can separate the kids out, and they could talk to that coach. She could work on, kids leadership training with them. We'll probably do a kids self-defense class with bringing an instructor for that, which is just a good thing in the world that we live in these
Mm.
days. We're going to do husband, wife, marriage, business leadership training. We're going to do sales and business operations training for those kind of things. And then one of the fun things that we're going to do is we're going to do some tactical training,
Mhm.
meaning like actual tactical training. So down at the Sawmills, the Sawmill is a tactical training complex, and they have a lot of really great instructors, like special forces instructors
Mm.
who are
Wow.
retired. And so they're going to work with us to do some, tactical, like door breaches and different stuff. And so the adults will do that training in the morning, and then in the afternoon we will have some games that involve, firearms and paint rounds
Mm.
and fun stuff like that to, just to have a good time, but to also implement and do something most people don't get the opportunity to do. First off, be around, special forces instructors breaching doors and breaking through buildings. And then the kids will do capture the flag and fun stuff like
Mm.
that. But getting outside, having fun, building the family unit, growing together, crying together, uncovering some broken things in our lives. Because the main thing is we got to be truth. The truth is transformational, and so we've got to be honest about where we're at. We got to have a
Mm.
clear vision around where we want to go, and then we got to put the bridge together between the two. And so that event really is to help develop, a lot of that.
Nice. Well, I know you're going to share the link with me. So if you're watching this, and I said the one event was local, that doesn't mean that you won't have people come. Like you will take people that will come from out of town, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
we'll have people that fly in. We'll pick you up at the airport, whatever that looks like needs to be. We've got dates set up for the spring event, the fall event, and we'll do them more next year if there's a bigger need for that. The power panel projects, they happen the second Friday of the first month of each quarter. So the next one is October 11th.
All right. Well,
Um, So yeah,
Well,
we love it. Come on.
we'll put those links below. I'm guessing those links will be where you can go and register for
Yep,
the
that's
event.
correct.
So we'll put those there. Justin, what else do you want to share with the people that are here? What else can they
Get out there and
contact
go
you?
get out there and go do it. You will find freedom in getting after it. You know, you won't find what you're looking for sitting on the couch. You won't find what you're looking for sitting behind the screen. You won't find about what you're looking for by being alone. So get out there, go shake some hands, go make some friends, create some content, have fun. Nobody's going to get mad, and yeah, get in alignment with who God made you to be, and go be the one. There was a sign in Greenville that used to say, "Go be the rich eccentric uncle you wish you had."
Mm,
Go be that guy. God made us to do well. God made us to do good things, and so I'll tell you something real quick. This is a very transformational, simple thought. The future isn't real. It's all made up. You
mm.
might as well make it a good story.
Ooh,
Don't
I
make it a
love that.
disaster. Don't tell yourself it's the world is ending and interest rates or the economy or elections and all that stuff. Don't pay any of that any mind. You write the story down that you want to tell. You tell yourself and everybody else that story, and then you go after it.
Yeah, love that. Love that, man. Well, thank you everyone for watching. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
Thanks. Great to see you.
All right. Sorry about the little